The world is changing fast. New technologies, shifting social landscapes, and evolving ways of living can feel both exciting and overwhelming. So, how do we find balance? I'm Stephanie von Bismarck, activist, author, and digital educator. Welcome to my podcast, where each week I sit down with some of the world's best thinkers, trailblazers, and extraordinary people to explore how we can navigate this fast-moving world. We'll share practical tools and uncover inspiring ideas to help us all thrive and answer the simple question, how do we manage? Today, we're diving into a topic that's far more common and far more devastating than most people realize: romance fraud. In the UK alone, more than 40,000 cases were reported between 2020 and 2024. And in the US, the Federal Trade Commission estimates that victims lost a staggering $1.4 billion in 2023 alone. But behind every statistic is a human story, and today we hear one of the most well-known. My guest is Cecilie Fjellhøy, who lost nearly $200,000 to a romance scam that shocked the world, and later become the focus of the Netflix documentary, The Tinder Swindler. But Cecilia didn't stay silent. Instead, she transformed her trauma into purpose, becoming an activist, a public speaker, and founder of LoveSaid, an organization supporting victims of emotional fraud and fighting the stigma that too often surrounds them. We began our conversation by revisiting what she went through and how she found the strength to speak out. Cecilia, it's great to have you here today. Thank you so much for taking your time and coming to the podcast.
Thank you. And thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit, for those people who haven't seen the Tinder Swindler documentary on Netflix,
Yes.
tell me a little bit what it was about.
Well, it was about fraud. I was defrauded back in 2018, went then to the press and decided to, I was going to be the last victim, hopefully. Like I wanted to stop the guy. And it became a sensation. It was so weird. I don't think anyone that goes to the press are thinking that it was going to be the phenomenon. But I met this guy on Tinder, therefore the Tinder Swindler, and met him very quickly. And he told me he was the CEO of a big diamond company, was traveling around. So his life was was filled with like private jets and expensive dinners and nice cars. So a life very different from mine. And we started dating and we became a couple. And, when it comes to fraudster, there will always be some problems arising. And with this guy is that he's been doing very well in the business of diamonds. And as we all know, like it can be a shady business.
Very shady.
Yeah. So I was like, so he had a bodyguard. And I was like asking, why do you have a bodyguard? And you come into his world. So it's not only him that you're meeting friends and business partners and private assistants. And the bodyguard was one of these people. And he said that he'd been doing so well at his job. And so his competitors had been coming with threats to stop him from working, aka traveling around, whining and dining clients, signing contracts. And at this point, I had met the guy, I'd been seeing, his life, and there was nothing that made me kind of doubt what he was saying at the time. And after a while, things got worse. And he said that he had a security team that said that his enemies could see where he were by the spend on his card. So he could see like some of the VI was in this country or that country. And he then asked for a favor. And at that point in time, I actually asked, do you need help with anything? Because he was in big trouble, And that's when he said if I had then a credit card so he could travel safely under my name as Cecilie Fjellhøy. And I was first thinking you're never going to be able to do that. We've always been taught, credit cards, and if you even borrow it, you shouldn't do that. So I said, no, who's gonna let you do that? So at that point in time, I didn't want to, turn my back on him or be that kind of girlfriend that wouldn't believe him. Like if he was my boyfriend, it wasn't even a question of doubt who he was. So I said yes to that. But when you give them half a finger, they take the entire arm with these fraudsters, so things didn't get better. And I had lost over 200,000 pounds by the end of it. So it was an insane amount too, because of his business and his world. And, when he was then buying tickets, that's what he needed money for, to buy tickets and hotels. It wasn't only for him, but it was for his team. So 10K was nothing for him. It was like more, can you get 40, 50K on the card?
Wow.
That is like for a normal person who can just do that.
I guess you've heard it before. And I've, also met people who say, I would have never fallen for something like this, Yes. So what do people not understand about manipulation in relationships or these kind of predators?
Yeah. And I think that is what is the saddest part. Like before this happened to me, I thought the same thing. I thought that, when I heard about fraud victims, I was like, how can you fall in love with someone just over a phone? And yes, I met the guy, but I didn't meet him a lot of times. Most of our relationship was long distance over the phone. So I did fall in love with someone, talking to them, not in person. And I felt the pressure in person. And I think what people don't understand, that is actually abuse. It's like, well, you handed your money, you gave away your money. That is not a crime. I've heard several times. And we're doing ourselves a huge disfavor by talking about it like that. This is why, fraud is flourishing, why there's so many that are too ashamed to come forward, because this is what we're being told. And I'm sitting there like, no, I know, like this is a crime. To become a victim of this, you have to be a good person. So what people don't understand is like, you have to be giving and loving and kind and trusting. And kind of when you become a victim of this, it's being turned upside down. That is something that you deserve happens to you because you were a good person. And I'm like, I never come to terms with that. So I think people don't understand is how abusive the relationship can get because of the cursive nature of it, that they're testing you very early on to see, they check for compliance. For example, like, early on, Simon was saying, can you come here? Can you come where I am? Can you do this? Can you do that? Has nothing to do with money, but they're testing to see what kind of person is she? Will she just do as I say? And like just being kind, just being flexible, but that is what they see. Oh my God, okay, she will. And they're looking at these, traits with you that they can exploit.
Yeah,
and I think that's awful. That's evil.
I suppose it's that every young girl's dream. You were thinking you were sort of met a prince that everyone is dreaming of, or how did that feel?
He just was a really nice guy to me, and I've always been good at picking men. I had never come from an abusive relationship. I always know like how I should be treated, what kind of man I want. So I think I was a perfect target in the sense that they mold themselves around you and they become the person you want. And so it wasn't like a perfect fairy tale, but it became like, of course, I wanted to save him. And I felt that kind of he was saving me from this, not saving me, but I had just moved to London. I feel like we all can be vulnerable in different situations in life. We always talk about vulnerable people. I'm like, come on. That is to put a target on someone, say, oh, you're vulnerable, but you're not. That is not correct. Because I didn't have my family and friends around me at the time from Norway.
How did you deal with the shame you felt once you realized that you've been defrauded?
I think you're in a trauma state when you finally have realized. And I got that when Amex came, and showed me the picture. And, I said it just went dark.
It's like a shock.
It's like you kind of knew, but it's kind of seeing someone telling to you straight up who this guy really is. And so many others have had to come to that conclusion either through their bank or having their police on their door. And I just held a talk for Monzo last week, and banking and police don't know what to do, because we're brainwashed. So a lot of times we refuse to believe it. Someone comes up to you and say, well, you're being scammed by a boyfriend, with that shame and that I'm not a stupid person. No, I'm not. Is the first thing we want to say.
Yeah.
So, the realization takes so much longer because of that shame.
Of course, you don't want to acknowledge that you've been tricked into something where you should have known better. Yeah. So, quote unquote, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think both the trauma that you slowly have to unpick all your experiences and what was real and what wasn't. And you're trying to mourn a relationship and you feel cheated on as well as I did. And for me, I was like, and I'm still to this day, did he ever even like me? And that is what I meant, what he's done to my brain, is that I'm sitting here still wondering and are sad about that. I don't think he even liked me, if you know what I mean? Because I was like, I thought why would someone be that evil? And I think having to both then, when you then tell people what happened, their first, what I had a lot of, why did you do that? And I get that they don't mean it negatively.
Yeah, no,
you know what I mean? They are just trying to
hindsight.
Yeah, like they're just trying to be nice. Like, oh, come on, Cecilie, why did you do that? For me, it's like, oh, but I did. You know, like I don't know what to say.
In my experience, I've been fighting, sexual abuse of children, but also online grooming of children. And to me, it seems, those kind of predators, as you described them, this is exactly how they move on to children as well. Often they don't move on to children immediately. They actually move on to the parents first, because they want to gain the trust of the parents. So later then, when a child comes and asks for help because something is happening, the child is not believed. And they are extremely smart. And I've, in a long period of work in that field, I've had many, many parents who have told me, this is never going to happen to me. This is never going to happen to my child. And I said, how do you know that? And as you were saying, I was like, this is a child is innocent. If you're the good and conscientious people, and you have the heart in the right place, it's like, of course, you're gonna, trust people because you believe in the true nature and the good nature of people. So it's very interesting to hear your story. So it's not only happening in the world of the children's online grooming, it's happening to the adults as well.
When you say that, that is really interesting, because when we talk about grooming, we've heard about in children, but this is what they do. So we've been trying to bring that word into this too, is adult grooming.
Exactly.
So kind of try to make people understand what's going on here. It's so difficult to understand the psychological, what's happening to you when they go in, they make you fall in love with them, and that is the grooming part.
Yes.
Which is so sad. And that is why I'm like, kind of, when we talk about children and stuff, it's exactly the same thing. And that is what we've been trying in the fraud community to make people realize the dangers of it. They might seem nice, they might seem kind, but that is why it's so evil. Like, we're just unfortunate. So when people say, will never happen to me or my child or anything, you are maybe the best victim for them because your guards are down. And that is what I mean. Like, I always say, sometimes when I do my talks, I'm just saying, you might not fall, and I make like fall in that sense because the language is very important for me here, but you might not fall for a diamond prince, but there is a fraud for everyone. It's the exploitation of that trust is the same way no matter what, and that is what I'm trying to get through people's heads.
Yes, exactly. And that's so important.
Yeah.
Talking about, being that quote unquote victim is like, I know when you went public, how did people perceive you then?
Oh God. Like the screenshots that I've seen the most of myself is me crying. It's all over. They love to use that as this. And it's a double thing here. On one part, so much love, you get that directly in your inbox. So much love from people that are saying, this is so needed. I'm ashamed too. We need to fight this. And thank you so much for, standing up. But then you have that other side where, and this is why this crime is so sad, tons of hateful comments saying that I'm a gold digger, that I deserved what happened to me. A lot of slut shaming, because I had to say I had over 1,000 matches on Tinder. And I was like, when I say I had to say, I don't mean it like that. But as a true crime victim, when it happens and they make entertainment out of it, they make your private life, out there for everyone to scrutinize and talk about. And that because they need to understand who you are as a person.
Yeah.
So you get a lot of vitriol. The incel movements love this case. There's someone that wrote a comment like, oh, to finesse 4 or 5 women out of their finances takes an elite level of finesse. This guy should hold a TEDx talk to us, man. Like, that is kind of...
Oh, that's horrific.
Yeah, so it goes from, it's fine to say that you're naive, maybe you should have had your guard up, all of these where you can like, okay, or people are not informed enough. That is not a crime. Don't know why you're crying, to I'm laughing. Like I was like, oh, I loved seeing you cry on national television, being the gold digger you are. Like you're the way, why dating is the way it is.
Why do you think is there public fascination with the predator and the public shaming of the victim? Should it not be the other way around?
That is what's so weird about this crime. It's the same with a lot of, when you talk about that this crime is not gendered. Like when it happens to the victim, it's 50-50. When reports are being made, not out in public, it's 50-50. But when you go public, a lot more women, have the guts to do that. And that's why it become known, goes very stupid women and those type of things. And then it's easier for men to, that have those sentiments about women to go after you and say like, oh, finally, a man is doing what women have been doing to men throughout the times. Like why is it so different what he did to us than what women have been doing to men, And it's kind of interesting how we've come to that point in society where we're...
Okay, that's not, it's an interesting viewpoint, let's put it mildly.
Yeah, and I was with a man who was a fraud victim for a TV show in Australia.
Okay.
And the host asked this man, well, you went public, because he did. How was the reception? Oh, no, all was good. Nothing. He hadn't had a single negative comment, because then it's evil woman, towards him. But when women are being defrauded, it's evil women still, when we're the victims. So it's so interesting. Like no matter, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't, in those people's eyes. And that is why it's difficult to stand up and talk about this. But I know very well that I'm not a gold digger. Like I'm a very poor gold digger. Haven't really understood what a gold digger is then. Yeah. So I don't let it get to me and it's fine. But at the start, it was horrible. I went into Facebook comment sections, YouTube comments, Reddit. Don't do that.
Exactly. I was on my question. Would you ever do that again?
Or go in and read?
No, yeah, the comments.
I'm using it more like sometimes I have to, because for me, it's important to highlight what is out in society. People are saying, don't give them the spotlight, but I mean, like, but these sentiments are out there, and this is why we're having the issues that we're having. If you go down any fraud case and you go down to the comment section, it's horrible, and they're laughing and having a grand old time on people's, pain and misery. It's just really sad. So I'm trying to rather look at it like that. But no, for my own mental health, I know it's out there, but I'm trying to just use it in a, to make people aware. Awareness is why I would rather do it. I got one comment I got an email just a couple of days ago where he was writing this long of how an awful person I was, and gold digger, gold digger, gold digger, gold digger throughout the entire thing. And but I always think that the people who write these comments, they're not happy with themselves, and this is where it's coming from. They're upset with their own,
misery.
Life. Yeah, their own life. They're not happy, and
they have to throw it onto someone else.
Yeah. But for me, it highlights why we have an issue with this type of crime, though. And
how did that change you, that experience?
It turned my life upside down. I had always been the golden child. Like I have my master's in IT. I worked for a decade in the IT industry. I own my own flat in Norway, so I've been able to buy that when I was 24. Made all the right decisions, and then suddenly, boom, everything goes to hell. Like it was proper hell. It has changed me. What I have to say, though, it has changed me in a positive way too. I think it's weird to say, but I think my perception of what happiness is, what is a good life, totally. Before it was like to go down the very traditional path, and you need this X, Y, and Z to be happy. You need to own that. You need to own that house. You're not going to be happy if you rent, for example. And I was like, in Norway, everyone owns. Like you don't rent in Norway. And now that I lost everything, I needed to rebuild, okay, what is happiness for me? So I'm much calmer in my life journey. I don't think about it the same way as I was. I'm not stressed anymore. Like I turned 37 a week ago. You know, Cecilia back when she was 29, when this happened to her, would have been so sad. Not like that you're still single and you're still renting and nothing's been, you're totally different. But I'm so happy because I found the peace and I found how important family is and how important good friends are. And that I have to say, that is thanks to that experience. And all people that I know said that you're much calmer as a person.
Well, in German, there's a saying that nothing is as bad that it's not good for something.
Yes. And I think when this happens to you, you need to look at it like that. If not, you're going to be bitter and angry and, and then he will win, then he won everything. He's taken both your money and your life, kind of.
So many people are using apps to make connections these days. Has this experience changed your approach to online dating? Are you still meeting people online?
I am. I've always loved online dating. I always loved dating. Like I'm one of the weird ones that like a first date, not an issue. Second date can be an issue, but first date is always fun. Get to know someone and can go. So I've always used it, especially when this happened was during COVID. Like a lot of the things I went through was during that time. How will I meet anyone? How will I even talk to? Like I needed the dating apps to be able to just converse with other people than my flatmates. So I went on some walking dates and stuff, it's been really, really. I feel that it's much more difficult because with the work I do now, we come into it on the first date, and it's not something that you might want to talk about on the first date, and that I've been still trying to figure out how to do that the right way because I don't want to lie. I don't want to say that I'm doing a job I'm not doing. I would be feeling so weird. I tried at the party once to say I was still a UX designer. And I talked about stuff that was happening 4 or 5 years ago. I was like, why? Because
it's not authentic.
Because people hear about the Tinder Swindler, and especially if they've seen it, they, wow, like you get that reaction. You're like, oh. And of course, I don't have an issue talking about it. But when it's a date, and, I had men block me. I know I gave them my Instagram and never hear from them again. I was going to go on a date a couple of weeks ago and we're going to meet up and didn't hear anything. And I just went into the messages and he had blocked me. And it's just several things.
Probably it's the wrong people anyway then.
Yeah, you don't want to be with them, but you can imagine that the pool gets much smaller. It's an interesting thing having this type of job when you're used to having a 9 to 5 and
but it's also who you are now. You've become a much stronger, much more radiant woman because of the dark things you've been through, and that will certainly attract not anyone that needs someone who is able to handle that.
Yeah, they need to. So I know that. So the people who block or I don't hear from, it's totally fine for me.
Yeah.
But then I always think about, oh, did I not ruin my life, but you know what I mean? It's kind of like, oh, things would have been just simpler to not have this presence where people can Google the hell out of you and read so much,
So if I now went on any kind of platform. By the way, is there a platform which is safer or better than another one? I'm not really familiar with all of that. I'm a little old school when it comes to this.
I wish I could say that there was one, and we are actually going to do the training for the Bumble employees and the Bumble moderators. They're very happy. But I have to say, well, it has been difficult to find one where there's not a single app out there that that wants you to send in your identification to make sure 100% that the person you're speaking to is the person in real life, that no one has that. They have face verification, but people can change the images so it still looks like it's verified, so it's not to the standard I would like. So
would you like that? Would that be a good thing?
Yes, for me it would, but I know from a UX, I worked in user experience design. I know that the moment we have more friction when it comes to, signing up for stuff, people won't use it. Yeah. So when these companies are against, having tons of people on their platforms or making it 100% safe, what are people wanting? Because the people who are truthful, like that, we could just go on, register yourself. We don't understand how many are out there trying to, defraud us and how big this is. So we're like, oh no, I don't want this. I don't want to, give my information to this private company. I don't want that. I want it easy, quick. So they
But
have
if you have nothing to hide,
you know,
wouldn't it actually filter out the people who are truthful
Yes.
and honest about it?
And I think with how things are going in society now, with the amount of deepfakes and, creations of AI, audio, and all of that, I think people will, in the end, we would have to do it. I don't think, because now we can kind of see when it's a fake image. In the future, we won't. So I think that is what we need to do, but I think we're not there yet. So there isn't one app that is like better than others, but they have face verification and stuff. They have several things on the app to help you to feel safe. But what the fraudsters are doing is that they take you off the app. They want to chat with you not on the app, because on the app they can monitor what you're talking about, safe words, all these type of things. So, but I've been quite upset with a lot of them throughout the years.
And if I'm now coming back to that, is like, do I then ideally in the chat moments, do I stay there? Because it's safer in the beginning to stay on the platform when first conversations? Is that, yeah?
Because by that, they will be able to monitor if they're using any words about money, unsafe words, like or even if they're just being abusive, like they will be able to help you out and say, this is like, do you feel protected? Or there are several things. But what's sad is that they have tons of fake profiles on there still, images being, taken of other people from Instagram and stuff, creating these fake profiles, and they keep popping up. So that has been my biggest fault, that I've been very angry, because I'm like, why are you making this happen? And especially on Facebook, it's been a nightmare, because that's where a lot of fraud starts. That you just get a friend request, maybe someone just writes to you in your inbox. So your guard is a bit more down.
Sure.
And then so it's been hell getting the tech platforms to take responsibility.
What are your sort of 3 most important points? What do they have to change to make it better for everyone?
At least admit the issues on the platform.
Yeah.
I think that has been talking to financial institutions, been talking to the police, they've been talking about how awful, the crime is. It's so much of it, so we can't even investigate it. The banks need now to reimburse, so they're losing money. All of them have been telling me, we want to do more, but, this is a very difficult crime to, we want to stop it before it's happened.
Yeah.
And then I talk to the tech companies or the social media, or they don't even want to talk to you, to be fair, but the few I've been speaking to are saying, we do everything in our power. We're removing 80-90% of the fake profiles. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, even if I just go on any random now, I can find a fake profile for you like that. Like it's why are you talking about? And that is something I can see with my own eyes as just a normal person, that this is a fake profile.
How can I identify that?
Oh my God, yeah. First of all, some of them we do reverse image searches, so you can do that online now. So you can take a picture, screenshot of it, put them into an engine, and then we'll find if that picture is being used anywhere else. So my gut feeling is that if I see that it's kind of AI-ified, like you can see that it's a deepfake, like very, the skin has any texture, I go in and just check. If it's a very gorgeous man,
too good to be true.
Yeah, kind of. I can then go in and find this a model somewhere in France. Like all of these type of things that you could so easily do. They want us to do it. Why can't they do it? So like my biggest thing is that for them to admit that this is a huge issue and that they can take steps, but that will go into their revenue and they will lose money.
Yeah.
And I think that they should go in and start reimbursing victims the same way as banks have to. So we're in on the fight together.
Mm-hmm.
And then they need to start collaborating and sharing data with law enforcement, with financial institutions. We need to better collaborate because the fraudsters and the criminals are collaborating tons and they're doing training camps, and we need to do the same. So I think those are for them. We need them with us,
When it comes to those, let's call them con artists themselves, what should we be looking out for? What are the real red flags?
Oh my God, when it comes to romance, for love bombing, like fully. The issue is that some of us love bombing. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So that is like, if you love, you love if you just feel that you found that special connections. But kind of, he sent me 100 red roses for my birthday, 30th birthday.
Which girl doesn't like that?
I know, but he wrote on the card, love you always, 3 weeks in.
Okay.
And kind of, I remember I just felt so lucky and special and,
Mm-hmm.
and so that is like one, if it goes very quick
Too fast.
commitments, if it goes too fast, love bombing, and you just feel that you met your match, things are almost like, why are you so perfect? Now, investment fraud and romance fraud have been bundled together too. So it's not always that they need money, that they're in a crisis situation. Of course, that is. But sometimes they will say, oh, I've invested in this crypto. And do you want to do it too? So you can, so we can build a future together. Future faking too, of course. Simon and myself, we're going to get married, we're going to have babies, we're going to move in together, a month in. If talks of money comes up, because they will always kind of get a sense of how much money you have or what kind of life you've lived, to be able to. So that is like if they ask you about your work, which is very normal. This is why I think it's so sad. A lot of what they're doing is just normal dating too. Just asking questions. Great,
Yeah.
Asking what your job is. Is that so weird? But they always have a sinister motive with those questions.
Yeah, they're really manipulative, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or just trying to just find information on you to use that against you after a while. I think that Simon must have had a handbook on his victims, writing down facts and stuff about us.
You founded LoveSaid. What kind of help can I get there?
Oh God, as a fraud victim, you'll be able to get you will write to us. We will help you out in the situation you're in. We might not be able to get your money back, but it's kind of just having a listening ear, step by step, kind of what you should be doing. We have some connections with the UK police, so when it comes to your report, we can ask if there's anything to be done, help you out before you go to the police, what to bring, what to say, because a lot of the times when you go to the police, you don't know what happened to you.
Yeah.
You haven't understood. You're not using the right words, so you're like, oh, I gave away my money. You know what I mean? Or it was my boyfriend and I gave away my money. No, that's not true. He was never your boyfriend. He was your abuser and criminal, and he stole your money away from you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Very important.
The differences, but you don't get that. So you're not really sure what happened to you. So you're not, so we're trying to help them, just feeling the support. And then as a think tank too, it's just me and Anna. So it's a very small organization, but we really want to create change. It's one thing to help the victims. We don't want victims to become victims in the first place.
Yeah.
So we've been speaking in the parliament here in the UK for the politicians. We're having collaborations, both with Bumble, the dating app, to be able to help them out. We've been on several talks for financial institutions here in the UK. And oh my God, for the police, we've done so many talks for the police. And it's been warming. And it's been so nice to see they're taking in our perspective, our expertise. They said like 10 years ago, we would never have invited you because they thought that they were the experts.
Well, that's good news.
I know, it's amazing.
Yeah, that's good.
It's been a proper change. And it's, so it's my baby. I started my organization in Norway straight after the first time I went public. And I just saw that in the UK, it's much more openness for collaboration. So I was like, take it over. Met Anna Rowe, which I've co-founded, which she's another fraud fighter here, she has her own social media pages. And I was like, okay, if you have a vision, I have a vision, let's come together and let's see what we can do. So, and it was for me as well that I didn't felt, what would I be taken seriously as one fraud victim speaking up, like you need a proper organization to actually create change. That's what I was thinking too. Like I can scream from the rooftops, but I was like, if I get people together, and we have so many previous victims that wants to help us out in the future, when we get to build this up, because we see what peer support can do, talking to other victims who's been through the same thing.
Yeah.
Because people can say I understand, but I get that you can't really understand how it is to have dated someone who never loved you, and that took all of your money and ruined your life. That is a very difficult thing to comprehend. Yeah. And I think peer support. So we're wanting then to train other, survivors to help others. And I think it can be something amazing. So many people have been writing to me, that they feel their life is over. They don't want to live anymore. They're going to lose their house. They're going to lose their cars. They have kids. It's heartbreaking. And I can't even imagine how it is for them, because I didn't have any children, luckily. I lost, my flat, but I had all my family. I've had a lot of resources, My heart breaks so much for these people who are sitting in shame, writing to me. I feel so bad that I'm the person that they feel that they can write to. This is a person they just saw in a documentary. How many times have you written to someone you saw in a documentary crying out for help,
Yeah.
because they don't have anyone else? And that is the shame we're talking about here.
But that's how incredibly important your work is, how much is needed out there, that you had this horrendous experience, but at the same time, that insane amount of courage to stand up for yourself and to create it into something like this, where you really turn it for the better. You're helping the people. You're showing them a way out, and that is incredibly impressive. I'm really glad to meet you here.
Thank you. I just feel like every time I go off a stage and someone comes up to me and said, "You changed my opinion or impression of fraud victims, and I'm going to go back to my work now and see what we can do." And I was like, can you imagine how powerful that is for me? It's like, if you can go back to your financial institutions and say, maybe we should think about the language, how we're talking. There's campaigns still out there that is saying, have you fallen for this crime? Or you can't even trust yourself. How they're talking about this crime is like, what? Can't even trust yourself? How are fraud victims going to be out in society if we're being told that you can't even trust yourself? For me, it's so damaging.
Yeah.
So damaging. You should trust yourself better. You should listen to your gut. You should, when all of this is happening, you should really be mindful. Is this a good relationship? You should trust yourself more and not less. And that is where I'm like, wow, we have a long way. We have a long way to go. But that's what I'm here for, I feel. It's a new passion. It's a new purpose in life, which is weird. I don't know if I can say how weird that is.
I understand. But I think often in my experience, something fantastic comes out of something that originally wasn't good. And people are astonished about it, and you're one of those fantastic examples that this not giving up can lead to something incredible. Although you probably would have rather lived without this experience.
I think we all would have. But I think it happened to me for a reason. I think I was the one who could handle it because of the resources. And I had been working in the IT industry, understood actually what had happened to me. I was like, oh, did I take up all these loans? Have I ruined my credit? Yes. All of this, I was like, I wasn't blasé to, the issues I was potentially putting myself in. But I still did it for love and because I trusted him.
How do you manage trust, especially online?
It's difficult. I always said I didn't want him to take that away from me, being able to trust again. And, and since I love online dating too, kind of like I'm still using it.
Yeah.
But as I said, no, I'm still dating. I don't know if you remember from the Tinder Swindlers that it's not Tinder's fault. I'm still on Tinder. And I think it was almost like I don't think I really meant it back then. I think that was a security blanket for me to say, no, he hasn't done that to me, but I'm still here. I'm still single. I haven't had a long-term relationship since everything. I think it will take a long time for me to feel that someone is proud of me, despite all of what is out there. And I think, yes, I think it's tougher than I want to admit, finding, that person, which I then can fully trust.
How much of that was the online component, or do you think this could have, just also happened if you would have met him in a bar?
Yeah, that's what I mean. With Simon, you could meet him at a bar, and still get told the same story. So that is what I'm trying to say. They're everywhere. Please, don't think that it's only online. We have in-person romance fraudsters too, and it's not only Simon. I thought that too, but it's many of them. I think the online component for me was that, I met him maybe 4 times in total. So the online component is important for me because I still can't believe to this day how I felt so pressured from something on the phone and fell in love with someone on the phone. So I'm not the one to judge online relationships, or how could you love someone that you never even met? I'm like, well, look what I did, based on that love that I felt from him. So I think the online component has a huge, why I'm such an advocate for that. I'm happy that we still have those opportunities to meet online, but we have to be much more careful than what we've been. We need to understand what's out there. And this is organized crime too.
Yes, absolutely.
It's not just a little Simon that is just running around, you know. His was a small conspiracy, you know,
Yeah.
compared, but we have, you know, scammer camps, and it's just incredibly sad that people don't know the extent, and how many who are becoming victims of this daily. You don't want to just throw negative stuff at people, but I'm trying to make them understand, you know, like, and as I said, you might have an opinion of me and what I did, but I'm saying we don't want the criminals to get this money. We should not just be saying, "Aha, okay, we lost some money, woo-ha." Do we want criminals to have that amount of money? Do we want criminals to be able to fund, you know, human trafficking, drug trafficking, you know? All of these type of things are being funded with this money. And that is what I'm saying too. Take these stupid victims that you call us out of the equation. Do we want that to happen? No.
No,
So
of
that is
course
what I'm
not.
trying sometimes. Like, I don't care. We don't want criminals to be able to act in a vacuum now where no one is getting any convictions, you know? And if they get a
Yeah.
conviction, how many months, years will they get? And then they're out there again because they concoct up a new plan. They're just becoming better. Oh, sorry. I'm just like getting so.
Yeah, you should. I mean, and
It's
that's the right thing.
it's more
Otherwise,
like,
things don't change.
yeah, it's been 6 years, you know, and I was like, "Oh, no." Yeah, so that is why I remember when I first started this, I was like, "Yeah, we're gonna do this and X, Y, and Z." And now I'm like 6 years later, like, "Yeah, it will take time, but it's fine," you know?
If I may say, I'm really and I'm really happy for your anger, because that
Yeah.
seems to, fuel into the right direction.
I
It keeps you going, and it's going to help so many other people out there. That's fantastic.
Yeah, like one of my favorite books is Rage Becomes Her, is about women rage and kind of anger and how that's been viewed throughout society as something that we can't control our emotions and stuff. And I think it's been so funny, yes, that I've been so angry, and that has actually been quite good for me. It's not sadness. Sadness is making you just sit still, do nothing, and feel sorry for yourself, which is okay to feel sorry for yourself as well when this
Yeah.
happens to you. But I think to actually do something about it, you need to get that anger. But it can't eat you up, you know?
There's a question that I always ask my guests, and
Yeah.
it's like, is there something you do every day to manage your day better, like that helps you, during the day to start the day?
Oh, like I love, like, now I've just recently moved to a new flat, and I just love waking up in general now in my flat. But what I love is just to sit down and have that proper time for breakfast, to not stress. I would rather
Yay.
wake up an hour early and take it calm and make myself like some healthiness and just sit and just like put on some and music. Oh my God, put on some happy tunes in the morning. I think music for me, I always feel like if I just put on some, good morning jazz, or like, like Sunday morning rain. Like if you're not just like getting that
Yeah.
and a good breakfast, that is when I know a day is starting off
I
right.
love that. I
Yeah.
love why I like you, because I'm the same. I love a good breakfast. I'll get up
Yes.
earlier in the morning just to have that.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming here. It's been
Oh,
so valuable. I think it's amazing to hear your story. It's inspiring to hear what you've sort of are putting up with and what you're moving forward. And ideally, we're sort of, having all these people on the right side joining forces to
yes.
combat what's happening out there, right?
Mm. Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Okay. Cecilie Fjellhøy, what a remarkable woman. It's truly powerful to hear how she's taking a deeply traumatic, life-altering experience and turned it into something purposeful, helping others find strength and support. If you or someone you know has been affected by romance fraud or emotional manipulation, you'll find details about LoveSaid in the show notes. That could be a really important first step towards getting help. And if today's conversation moved you, inspired you, or made you think, hit follow and join me next time for more honest, powerful conversations here on How Do We Manage. Until then, take care of yourself and each other. This episode of How Do We Manage was brought to you by Audi, hosted by me, Stephanie von Bismarck, and featured Cecilie Fjellhøy. It was produced by Tori Pope. The production manager was Angela Crago, and the executive producer was Ali Di Martino. The series was recorded and edited at Podshop Studios in London.